We're on page number 107. We're talking about age and family life. How is it that age or belonging to a particular cohort, belonging to a particular age bracket affects your family life experience, right? Beneath this, we talk about the social construction of childhood. The social construction of childhood and the changes in the role and social position of children in the family, the changes in the role and social position of children in the family. First thing first, we'd work towards understanding what the topic has to offer us. Let's understand the topic first and then we proceed. The social construction of childhood. When we talk about the social construction of childhood, the idea over here is that childhood, unlike many laymen believe in, is not something that's natural. It is a social construction, or it is something that the society determines. Right, the childhood experiences an individual has. To put it in a simplistic manner, the childhood experiences someone from Pakistan has compared to the childhood experiences someone from the West has, they're very different, and that pretty much explains how it is a social construction and not something natural. Had it been something natural, every child in every society would have had the same experiences, but which is clearly not the case. One. Number two, we talk about the changes in the role and social position of children in the family. Now, that's an interesting one over here. Changes in the roles that children play within a family. Do you know what? Let's take this back to the 14th or the 15th century. Children used to be, or they used to have an important contribution towards the financial needs or the economic needs for a family. Children not only used to play the role of a mini adult, but at the same time, children used to, I mean, it's very simple. If you talk about an agrarian society and agriculture based society, right? अगर हम एक agriculture based society, एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड सोसाइटी की बात करते हैं, तो एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड सोसाइटी के अंदर रिमेंबर गांव देहात में आप आज भी चले जाओ, यू सी किड्स have a very important contribution towards the work that the parents do, which eventually does reflect in their income. And then, if you've ever studied or if you do know, children used to be amazing when it came to cleaning chimneys, because an adult wouldn't really get through it. And then if we speak about cottage industries, when you work at home, you produce things from home. Even then, जब आप कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री की बात कर रहे हो तो कॉटेज इंडस्ट्री के लिए भी बेटा आपको बच्चों की बहुत ज्यादा जरूरत होती है, because if you talk about a cottage industry, the entire family is working, right? And when the entire family is working, it's the husband, the wife, and the children were there too. So comparing with what I just discussed with how the experiences of children are today, the role that children play, they very clearly in many parts of the world do not have any contribution towards the finances of the family, right? One. Number two, if we speak about the postmodernist era, I don't know if you guys do know this, but there's this channel on YouTube, Ryan's World. Yeah, that child is so rich. I believe 30 million plus followers, and he has a chain of toy stores now, and he's doing quite well. Quite well. I mean, that's a lot of money. If I'm not wrong, we'd have to verify that from Google. But I believe he's the youngest billionaire or the youngest. Yeah, I think he would be a billionaire, not a millionaire. So yeah, a young boy. I mean, we do have extremes, right? I spoke about the pre-industrial era, and then I spoke about the modernist era, where the child was more of dependent on the family, and then we spoke about the postmodernist era, where there are unlimited number of opportunities that children have. And this is a real life example. You Google the Ryan's World and you'd get to know what I'm talking about over here. Get it? So we talk about the changes in the role and social position of children. Changes in the social position of children. Children do have say. You know what? I came across something really funny, which is pretty true as well. It was about the people who were from my cohort, right? People from the 80s, and I think I heard this. at some stand-up comedy show as well. There's a person who goes like, "Yeah, our generation is the one who suffered a lot. I mean, when we were young, we were told we're supposed to listen to elders, and now when we're elders, we're told we're supposed to listen to children. Ouch." So we haven't really come across any. I mean, we haven't really had the experience of someone listening to us. We used to listen to our parents, we used to listen to adults, and now they say, I mean, back in our days, scolding a child was good. You're actually making the child a better person. Today they say, oh no, we shouldn't be psychologically harming a child. So yeah, so the social position of of children has changed. And I mean, I remember this very well. My older child, I remember the child was doing something and I just said no. My sister was there and she goes like, no, do you know what, you teach psychology as well, you're not supposed to say no to a child. I was like, listen Ali, it doesn't really work like that. If I see my child running to the electric socket, I know what the child has in mind. The child is curious, the child might as well put his or her little finger inside that socket. I mean, you don't expect me to run in front of the child and be like, "Ew." I mean, because that's the idea my sister had. She was like, you might as well distract a child. You're not supposed to say no. Listening to no affects your personality. So we do come across things like this as well, right? The changing role of children, the changing social position of children within a family. Children today do have quite a lot which children did not have. I mean, the strictest of parents that you come across, even they given when it comes to the child's supper time or the child's food time. Kids today do very actively demand YouTube while eating food. I've come across families जिनका बच्चा सारा दिन iPad पे लगा होता है, and then there are stricter families like mine maybe. But then again, I see parents negotiating with children when it comes to having the meal, right? Child-centered society, or in this case we're talking about a family. Right now, I hope everyone has understood the topic that we're stepping into, the social construction of childhood and changes in the role and social position of children in the family. Right, to start off with, if we speak about Archard over here, Archard argues that every human society has developed a concept of childhood, but societies differ in the definitions of childhood and by extension adulthood. Now see, again we're emphasizing on the significance the term social construction has, right? The significance, the experiences childhood has in one part of the world is very different from the significance, the experiences that a child has in another, right? Which very clearly demonstrates the social construction, or the idea that childhood is probably not something that's natural. I remember, I mean, it's been a while, but I came across a picture, and that had a that had a little kid who was very healthy. To not sound very mean, the child was super healthy, if you guys get what I'm saying, right? And the child actually had a weapon on his shoulder. I don't know if you guys have seen uske niche, the caption to it was Barud Khan from Afghanistan. I know that rhymes, Barud Khan from Afghanistan. The point over here is that little child, whom I believe would not be more than 10 years old, you actually had a missile on his shoulder, right? So how dangerous is that compared to the childhood experiences we have over here today, the childhood experiences that we have in metropolitan cities like Karachi, fancy cities like Karachi, where parents are overprotected, and then you compare these childhood experiences with a child in our very country, let's just say from Chak number 434, from somewhere in Punjab. You've seen kids. I don't know if you guys have ever had the experience of being of going to the rural areas of Pakistan. If you have ever seen children there, I mean, दोपहर की कड़कती धूप होगी, 40+ टेम्परेचर होगा, बच्चे को ना पाँव में चप्पल होगी, ना नीचे शलवार पहनी होगी. आई मीन, दे डू वेयर लंबी लंबी कमीजें, और गांव के अंदर घूम रहे होते हैं, राइट? दे से गांव देहात में, दे से एक कवे को और एक बच्चे को गर्मी नहीं लगती. And the cover part I know, but the bacha part I've started believing in recently. You've seen how kids, the unprotected childhood they have, they're doing anything and everything, from fighting to the language they speak to the hard work to to acts of violence. I mean, anything and everything, right? Now, Archer argues that every human society has developed a concept of childhood, but societies differ in the definitions of childhood and by extension adulthood. If childhood was a simple biological category, we would expect every society to see it in a similar way. But that is clearly not the case. I just give you guys an example over here. The fact that this is not the case suggests that childhood is socially constructed rather than biologically decided or determined. I hope everyone's sorted with this. Summing it up according to Archer, childhood is a social construction, full stop, period. Number two, moving on to this amazing gentleman, Philip Aries. Let's have a look at what Aries has to say. You know what? Aries was a historian. Aries wrote a book, and the name of his book was Centuries of Childhood. Right? In his book, Aries came up with a wonderful idea. According to Philip Aries, childhood is a recent invention. According to Aries, childhood is a recent invention. Yeah, according to Aries, childhood is a recent invention. According to him, there was no such thing such as childhood till a couple of centuries back. He uses the term mini adults for these children. I mean, if you go back 14th century के पीछे 15th century से आप पीछे पीछे चले जाओ, according to Aries, childhood, the way you see it today, is a recent invention. There was no such thing such as childhood. Children used to be involved into heavy work, hard work, violent activities, and even sexual activities. Imagine, children were not considered as children. And then, according to Aries, it was after the 15th century when religious scholars came up with this idea of childhood being a distinctively different phase of an individual's life. Childhood being a distinctively different phase of an individual's life, where a child is expected to be socialized according to the norms, values, traditions, customs, culture. Right? According to Aries, it was religious scholars who came up with the idea of childhood being a phase where they should be treated as. I thought it was sanitizer. It is not. Okay, fine. It works well either ways. So yeah, I'll have to go wash my hands. Let me rub them well for 20 seconds, like Bablu. So fancy, yeah, fancy enough. Okay, moving on. Listen to me. 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 Yeah. What I was saying is, according to Aries, according to Philip Aries, childhood is a recent invention. There was no such thing such as childhood till a couple of centuries back. It was religious scholars who came up with the idea that childhood is a phase where children should be treated like a blank slate, where you should work towards helping the child adapt to the norms, values, customs, and the expectations that a society has from a child. I hope we all get this, right? Now, Philip Aries argues that childhood as a distinctive phase in social development only came into existence around 3 centuries ago. Childhood is linked to the change from pre-industrial to industrial society. While there were non-adults in pre-industrial society, they were neither called children nor treated in ways we would currently recognized as appropriate to this stage in an individual's life. In pre industrial society, children lived and worked alongside their parents. But the development of industrial society saw a gradual physical and cultural separation between childhood and adults. Do we get this? You know, today we have so many categories. Today we have, I mean, you go to a clothing brand, I mean, you go to an outlet for a clothing brand, you see there are different sections that are there for infants, toddlers, teens, and then adults. Look at the amount of categories we have over here. Children today not only are seen as different beings, but they're very well treated as different beings. Right? Talk about YouTube. Talk about television channels. There are so many there are so many different television channels today that are there for children only. If you talk about Storm Fiber, I believe there are 5 to 6 channels that are there for children only. You talk about YouTube. YouTube has a different application or a variation to its original YouTube that is only meant to be supposed to be for kids. Right? Now, taking this further, while let me highlight this, they were non-adults in pre-industrial society, they were neither called children nor treated in ways we would currently recognize as appropriate to this stage in an individual's life. In pre-industrial society, children lived and Let me underline this. In pre industrial society, children lived and worked alongside their parents, but the development of industrial society saw a gradual physical and cultural separation. Right? We're talking about a gradual physical and cultural separation between children and adults. In the UK, again, the development of an education system in the 19th century resulted in children spending less time working alongside others of all ages to spending time with their peers at school. Aries controversially suggested that there was no idea of childhood in pre-industrial societies. Of course, this is controversial. They can, for you to claim that the childhood back then was different from the childhood that we have today is one thing. That is something that is again debatable. You could, I mean, that's something that is understandable and pretty acceptable too. But the amount of confidence Aries has in terms of there being no childhood at all back then is something that is controversial, questionable, and arguable. I hope everyone gets this. Taking it a step ahead, Aries' adult attitudes towards children and children shift between the two extremes of seeing children as naturally good and innocent or seeing them as naturally bad and needing to be trained and disciplined. Now, we're talking about two different extremes over here. The assumption that children are naturally good and innocent. Like they say, bacche man ke sache. Number two, seeing them as naturally bad and needing to be trained and disciplined. This is another extreme, seeing children as being naturally bad and needing training and discipline. Like they say again, बच्चे किसी के सच्चे नहीं होते. Right now, in modern industrial societies, children are sometimes seen as objects of concern requiring adult protection, and at the same time, they are times seen as independent owners of rights. Children do have the rights. In the Western world, they could take their parents to the court, like literally taking their parents to the court, right? And choosing. Pani bhi dete hain. Thank you, Baji. Now, I hope everyone gets this. Objects of concern requiring adult protection and independent owners of right. These are both, I mean, you see, do you see the amount of variation over here? At one point, you see them as an individual who's going through the phase where they require a lot of protection, where they require a lot of check, where they require a lot more of care and love and support, and at the same time they're independent owners of their own rights. They have the protection by the legal system. They have their own rights. You can't just go about treating kids the way you want to. I mean, in our part of the world things are different. We can hit a child. That pretty much happens in many parts of our country, the rural parts especially. Kids are beaten up. The idea is बच्चा फिर गलतियां नहीं करेगा, and we all do know the second function of a chappal and the second function of a hanger. Hanger primarily is supposed to do something, and our mothers know how to go about it the other way too, and they're so good with the chappal. They know how they could, I mean, they know how to go about with the target, right? I hope everyone gets this. Taking this a step further, moving on towards the third point, as lacking awareness of right and wrong, they do not really have moral consciousness. Now, what is morality? Morality is you being able to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. They say बच्चे तो बच्चे होते हैं, बच्चे डिफ्रेंशिएट नहीं कर पाते कि सही क्या है और गलत क्या है, और ये बड़ों की जिम्मेदारी है कि उनको सही को सही बता के दिखाएं, नहीं, सही को सही सिखाएं और गलत को गलत सिखा के गलत से दूर रखें. एंड द फोर्थ वन, अवेयर ऑफ एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर देयर एक्शंस. I mean, you can't just say just because you're a child you get all of these extra extras, and but at the same time जब आप कुछ गलत करो तो you do not want to be held responsible for that. It doesn't really work like that. These different areas reflect a basic uncertainty about the status of childhood. I'd like to consider that important, and I'd like to highlight that the basic uncertainty about the status of children. This uncertainty is what I'm interested in. This, the uncertain nature of the status of children. All right, I'd want everyone to read through this once. Let's read through what Philip Aries has to say. Once we're done with this, we'd proceed. I hope everyone is done reading through this. Let's take this a step ahead. Let me remind you all we're on page number 108, and let's talk about cross cultural dimensions, or let's talk about cross cultural variations. Let me remind you a couple of minutes back when I spoke about the childhood experiences that kids have in the West, if you compare that with South Asian countries. Remember, I was talking about our part of the world, and we I was referring to South Asian countries, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. They're all South Asian countries. If we talk about cross-cultural dimensions, there was a study that was conducted by Malinowski on the Trobriand Island. Let me highlight this for you. On the Trobriand Island, and according to Malinowski, children, they were very different. And I mean, childhood experiences back then was very different, and childhood experiences that kids in from the Trobriand Islands had were very different from the childhood experiences kids have today. And for instance, children over there, they were given more responsibility and given more of rights as compared to the children today. Remember, the key word over here is, the hint word over here is mini adults, right? Number two, adult child relationship were closer, less strict, and more supportive than is typically the case in modern industrial societies. And number three, children were encouraged to explore their own sexuality, which clearly does not happen in the modern industrial era, right? So we're talking about cross-cultural dimensions, right? In other words, we're talking about comparison of childhood experiences from one part of the world to another, right? Now, the cross-cultural dimension is also significant because if childhood was a simple biologically determined category, we would expect different societies to have similar perceptions, and this is something that we have discussed. I've spoken about this. This is the third time we have this in front of us, right? In the last 20-25 minutes, right? So we're talking about cross-cultural dimensions, and yes, let's hop on towards the study that was conducted by Malinowski. Bear this thing in mind: the study that was conducted by Malinowski, this was in 22, right? However, evidence suggests that this is not the case. Malinowski's study of the Trobriand island of Papua New Guinea found that pre-industrial tribal societies differed from their industrial counterparts in three main ways. Number one, children were given more responsibility and given more rights. Adult-child relationships were closer, less strict, and more supportive than is typically the case in modern societies. Number three, children were encouraged to explore their sexuality. There was less guilt attached to sex play, and adults were more open minded of sexual discovery through play. Now, recent studies in South America, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Africa. Remember, kids, we're talking about a cross cultural comparison. We're talking about taking into consideration how the childhood experiences kids have in different parts of the world, right? It has been seen that there is a of diverse range of child-parent relationship. Hessian 1998 ethnographic study of the unconventional childhood of Brazilian children. I mean, you'd see this pretty similar to how the kids have their experiences. The kids, the I don't know if the word homeless helps you understand this well. We do see children in Karachi who are more on roads. We do see how they claim to be supporting their families. I mean, could be true and could not. How they're involved into drugs, how they're involved into petty theft, how they're involved into stealing things and selling things, and so on and so forth. Right now, we're talking about Brazilian street children. Shows that while many children find themselves living and working on the streets from an early age, they still maintain links with the parents and wider family. This relationship frequently takes the form of helping to provide for the family. I mean, it's pretty relatable, I'm sure. you have at some point come across a little child knocking your car's window and asking for help. They cute when they do it on Angrezi, and yeah. So this relationship frequently takes a form of helping to provide for the family by begging or selling bottles, cans, and cardboards. Right? Both historical and cross-cultural evidence points to the social construction of childhood. Again, back to square one. Had it been natural, everyone would have had the same experiences, which is clearly not the case. An idea underlined by a range of views concerning the nature of childhood in contemporary industrial societies. One significant argument is that childhood, as we have generally understood it over the past 50 years, has disappeared. Bang! That is something I believe everyone sitting over here would agree to. I mean, let's not talk about how things were 50 years back. I mean, if I talk about the childhood I had and if I compare it with my children today, oh, yes, it is different, right? Chale, mera to we can say it's been a while. And what about you guys? I'm sure if you have younger siblings, you see how your younger siblings have a fancier childhood today as compared to the childhood you have, right? So one significant argument is that childhood, as we have generally is understood it over the past 50 years has disappeared. I'd like to highlight that. I like to highlight this part. Okay. Now, having a look at what Neil Postman has to say, Neil Postman, 1984. Neil Postman blames technological development, the media, mass media for this, right? The open admission to technology. I'll give you a very simple example. If you see a child using YouTube, I mean, you leave the child unattended for a bit, and the child. I've seen this happening so many times. Children, they hop onto some. This is once my kids were watching Tarzan in Gujarati. I was like, what? What the hell? Who got you there? And like, we just clicked it. I mean, when a child could go to a Gujarati version of cartoons, a child could actually go anywhere, right? So the point is, according to Neil Postman, that a major reason for this is the development of open admission technologies. Now, this open admission to technologies has made kids more vulnerable because today there are more chances they have of being exposed to images of adulthood that has to do with sex, violence, and news that made it more difficult to define or differentiate what childhood should be like. I hope we get this right. Now, taking it further, where childhood ends and adulthood begins. The internet, for example, gives children access to information and images. Blame the internet very conveniently. So, the internet, for example, gives children access to information and images that in former times were denied until adulthood. Palmer argues that childhood has become toxic today. Bang! That's a more blunt one here. Childhood has become more toxic in a range of ways, including lack of opportunities to learn through play. I mean, back in our days, we used to go out to play in the evening. Today, kids are more inclined towards spending the leisure time being on the couch, being a couch potato, eating fries and popcorns maybe, and having YouTube in front of them, right? Now, one, the lack of opportunities to learn through play being restricted to the home because of parents' fear for their child's children's safety. That is another very important point. It's not only the children that have to be blamed for this. The amount of, media, let's blame the media here. The media does play a very important role in raising concerns and at times over sensationalizing and exaggerating things that make it very difficult for the parents to let the child be on his or her own, right? Now, being restricted to the home because of parents' fear for the children's safety, too much testing at school, and exposure to violent computer games and to alcohol and other drugs. Right now, we know what Palmer meant when she referred to childhood being toxic these days. Ouch. Right? Taking it a step further, if we speak about Robertson over here, Robertson in 2001 suggests that a further factor in the disappearance of childhood is that children are encouraged to be consumers. Children today are encouraged to be consumers. Now, when we talk about children being encouraged to be consumers, you've seen how advertisers have specifically targeted children for their products. Manufacturing industry, I mean, they have anything and everything for children, anything and everything separately for children. And advertisers, they are making a point that they rip off parents by, I mean, you see children, may God bless Elsa from Frozen. Yeah, I mean, Elsa has cost me around 200,000, if not more, me alone. But बाकी तो छोड़ ही दें. From a cycle to a themed bed to a lot. I'm glad I think we're done with the Elsa phase now. Hopefully, before that, before Elsa, we had Ben 10, and then there was this Dora the Explorer. Yeah. So, encouraged to be consumers using goods and services that were formerly available only to adults. For example, mobile phones. Today, kids use that. Advertisers Advertisers target children's markets in increasingly sophisticated ways. Let's underline that as well. That has led to the development of a consumption culture. Oh, Baba, my friend had, what's the name? There's this red color, very annoying car. The McQueen, the McQueen. I don't know how to. Do you guys know what Yeah, yeah. I don't even know the name, but yeah, you've seen how there's a consumption culture that makes the world of childhood more like adult world, right? The postmodernist view, like we all know, perspectives play a very important role. Postmodernism is what I believe works out well when it comes to bringing your answers to an end towards a conclusive bit you could bring in postmodernism that just makes your answers fancier. Because when you talk about postmodernism, we're talking about a phase that has come after modernism, and we're talking about a phase that we're speaking to, referring to today, right? The postmodernist view is that while children are increasingly consumers of products, they also shape those products. Bang, 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 bang. That is an amazing point. They also shape those products. Now, how do they shape those products? What was the song? Let it go was so popular, right? Okay. एल्सा को एल्सा किसने बनाया? बच्चों ने. डोरा को डोरा किसने बनाया? बच्चों ने. मैंने नहीं, बच्चों ने. ठीक है. डोरा की पॉपुलैरिटी कहां चली गई? They doing what us adults do. We pick up something, we make it so popular, and then after a while we just let it be. Kids, they not only consume products, but they're also shaping products too. I'll give you an example. There's this game these kids play these days. They're wooden blocks, starts with J. Yeah, Jenga. Look at how they're so expensive. I mean, the other day I saw it at my place, and the kids were so happy and excited. Later to figure out it cost a couple of $1,000. I mean, वो थे क्या, लकड़ी की छोटी छोटी blocks. I could have gotten it done in less than 1,000 rupees, मतलब maybe just 1,000 rupees. I would have asked any carpenter to make small bits of it. Look at this consumption. Kids were excited playing the, what is it again? Jenga. Yeah. So जेंगा को जेंगा किसने बनाया? बच्चों ने. जेंगा को पॉपुलर किसने बनाया? बच्चों ने. डोरा को पॉपुलर किसने बनाया? बच्चों ने. एल्सा को पॉपुलर किसने बनाया? बच्चों ने. मैक्विन, whatever it is, right? That looks like an angry red color car, right? So yeah, we have some special requests for Doraemon because I kids felt I shouldn't have missed that name. Moving on. Okay, get back to this. Now, moving on. Postmodern child inhabits a world quite different from the children of even a generation ago. They're exposed to a far wider and richer range of experiences. As I see it, I believe आज का बच्चा इतना तेज है, जाके अपने घर वालों को मोबाइल मार्केट में बेच के आ सकता है. इतना तेज है आज का बच्चा, right? Now, they are exposed to a far wider and richer range of experiences, although once that are still different from the adult world. The social construction view applies to other age groups as well. I mean, it's not only childhood. It has to do with adults as well. It has to do with teenage, it has to do with middle age, it has to do with elderly, and it has to do with द एल्डरली, राइट? क्योंकि वो सिर्फ वेस्ट में होते हैं, हमारे पास लोगों की लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी इतनी नहीं है, so they don't really get to experience that. The social construction view applies to other age groups as well. For example, being a teenager in industrial societies is frequently characterized as involving stresses, and tensions that are blamed on biochemical changes during puberty. All right, now you come across parents these days. Parents are cute. Parents be like, "Sir, they're going through this phase, sir. They're just growing up, sir." I mean, wait. Remember, I say that to a lot of parents too. We grew up too. Guess what? We went through the same biochemical changes too. If they are to be blamed, right? So that's another thing that many people bring in under discussion. Now a teenage, you know how the expectations, teenagers, the expectations that they have from life, from the world around them, from their family, from their friends, idealizing things that they get to see from the media, which are mostly not realistic, right? However, comparisons between cultures suggest that these are cultural in origin, arising from a long period of transition from being a child to being an adult. In societies where there's a transition rite of passage, a point at which a child becomes an adult, the idea of being a teenager does not arise. Wait. That requires some explanation here. You know what? I don't know if you guys know what the word rite of passage means. A ceremony that changes your status, right? For instance, a rite of passage. You're a happy bachelor today, tomorrow you get nickified, and that makes you married. That's a rite of passage that just changed your adult, right? I'm alive today, tomorrow. Oh, you were too fast, too quick at that. Okay. So yeah, as the child likes it, I'm alive today, I die tomorrow. That my funeral in itself is a rite of passage that changes my status, right? From me the living to me the late, right? Now the point is, there are certain societies where there wasn't really there was this instant transition. You are from children to adulthood. Stop. Yeah, cover it up all you want now. If you're a child and then you go through that rite of passage that makes you an adult, right? However, in modern industrial societies, there's this what do you call it? This phase. I'm forgetting the word for it, right? There's this transitionary phase जिसको बीच में teenage कहते हैं. Teenage is a phase where you're not a child and you're not an adult either, right? You're not a child because of course if you're a teenager you throw someone's phone and break it, you are to be blamed for it, right? And if you're a teenager, if you're not 18 as yet, you're not legally allowed to vote. So again, this is a phase where you are somewhere in between childhood and adulthood. So what this is trying to explain over here is it is more than biology. If there's anything that has to be blamed, it should be the culture. There are, the nakhras that kids over here in many metropolitan cities have today. यही बायोकेमिकल प्रोसेसेस आपके पास गांव देहातों में भी लोग उनसे गुजार रहे होते हैं, right? So why is it not that they're always, you come across, there are so many kids who would be like, oh, sir, you don't know what I'm going through, sir. I'm sorry, I can't sit for the test, sir, because XYZ, because I'm not in my state. Keda state, bhai. That's what this book says, not me. It's cultural origin and not the biochemicals to blame. And yeah, this pretty much brings this to an end. We're on page number 109. And so that's pretty much it for today. Take care of yourselves. Stay happy, healthy, safe, and protected. Stay humble. Spread positivity. Spread smiles. And Allah Hafiz.